Most people are familiar with the story of Noah and the Ark. In fact, it's become a rather popular children's story. We use elements from that story to decorate the room of that new bundle of joy we are expecting. We sit our young children in our laps as we flip the pages of colorful illustrations of happy, smiling animals boarding the Ark. We structure Sunday school messages around this story as a cute way to teach the Bible to kids. But are we teaching the real story? Or are we glossing over the dark and uncomfortable truths which popular culture has hidden with a sleight of hand? You see, the story of Noah and the Ark isn't just about animals, small and large, cohabitating peacefully with each other for the sake of continuing humanity. There is a much darker element to this story, an element that is imperative for us to understand if we want to know what's really going on in our world, and where we are unfortunately headed once again. We find the story of the Great Flood in Genesis, chapters 6 through 9. God tells us the human race had become so wicked, he had to wipe them out, except for a man named Noah and his family, who had found favor with God. God instructed Noah to build an ark large enough to hold he and his family and 2 of every living creature. When the floodwaters came, it would destroy everything and everyone outside the ark. It seems a little drastic, doesn't it? Some people like to use this story to argue an unloving and a dictatorial God. But if you think about it, that doesn't really line up with a God who would send his son Jesus to die in our place for sins so we could be redeemed and spend eternity with him. So there must be more to it, right? Context is important, and if we back up just a few paragraphs, God gives that to us. Buckle up. Get ready for the part they don't teach in Sunday school. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Based on supporting scriptures and Hebrew translations, it is believed these particular beings were fallen angels who were cast out with Satan. These fallen angels were attracted to human women and married them, but it didn't stop there. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. The fallen angels and human women mated and had children, which were called Nephilim. The word Nephilim comes from the Hebrew root nephil, which translates to giant, which further translates to a bully or a tyrant. These high-bred kids were not only massive in stature, but they were wicked and bent on causing destruction. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, "I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them." When it says God regretted making human beings, in this context, the word actually translates to grieved. Through the actions of fallen beings, his creation was perverted into a hybrid, half human and half spirit, something it should not have been, and it grieved God's heart. This led to the global destruction we know as the Great Flood, a resetting of sorts. But why save Noah? This is another interesting part of the story that is easily overlooked. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. The Hebrew word for generations speaks to his lineage, his bloodline, and the Hebrew word for perfect translates to undefiled. Noah's bloodline, all the people between the first man, Adam, and himself, were pure. None of them intermixed with the fallen angels. Because of this, God could start over with Noah and his family. It's no wonder they leave this part out of the children's books, but it's important we understand what really happened. Why? Because history has a way of repeating itself. Do you ever wonder why Hitler killed so many Jews? When he came into power, he had a plan to create an Aryan master race. The notion of that master race emerged in the late 19th century and, in its simplest form, was a way to categorize non-Jewish Europeans having German blood and descending from specific ethnic groups. In their minds, all others were racially inferior subhumans, to quote a Nazi term. The plan was to exterminate anyone who didn't fit neatly into this category. They looked at it as a type of ethnic cleansing. This led to the Holocaust, a most horrific time in history that took the lives of more than 6 million people. After that came the famous Holocaust expression, "never again," meaning never again would humanity allow such an atrocity to occur. But evil has a funny way of infiltrating and indoctrinating without our realizing what's happening. We are conditioned to believe advancement in all areas is for the good of mankind. Don't get me wrong, not all advancement is evil. God wired us to discover, to progress. But through these pursuits, we are faced with moral and ethical crossroads along the way. For example, medical advancements are a good thing, right? But what happens when those advancements create the avenue to materially change our God-given DNA? What happens when those biological advancements merge with technological advancements and the human race progresses down the path of transhumanism, fundamentally changing who and what we are on the inside? In these situations, would the people who allow such procedures no longer be considered a pureblood and therefore be defiled in the eyes of God? Creation is a beautiful mystery, and we are perfectly and intentionally crafted by the Father's own hands. Humans are the only thing that meant enough for God to sacrifice His Son for. If the defiling of His creation was such an abomination to Him that He had to wipe out most of humanity and start over, what does that mean for humanity now, on the brink of so much ungodly transformation? Make no mistake, history is repeating itself before our very eyes. The enemy is attempting to usher us into a new era of bioengineering and transhumanism, something they are openly calling the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And it will materially change God's creation. The good news is, God promised never to destroy the earth with another flood. I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. God will honor that promise. He always does. So where does that leave us? I have a speculation. If materially altering His creation angers God to the point of destroying what is defiled, and if, through the covenant He made with Noah, there will be no other global flood to destroy humanity, then I believe the alternative is clear. Jesus is coming back. When the disciples asked how they would know when the end was here, Jesus told them, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." I personally believe we are living in the end time. I believe we will see evil use manufactured crisis of all kinds, pandemics, economic, food, environmental, and socio-political, to advance and usher us into that Fourth Industrial Revolution. As it was in the days of Noah with the Nephilim, so will it be with bioengineering and transhumanism. And like the scripture we just read, many will be oblivious to the danger until it's too late, and we are thrust into the tribulation, the last 7 years on earth. If I'm right about that, you don't need to fear. Just make sure you read the book. It tells you who's going to win that war. The battle will be intense, so make sure you're on the right side of it and remain pure-blooded. And stay with me, because sometime in the coming weeks, we're going to take a closer look at what the Nephilim really are and where they might be walking among us today.